am Marwan Cameron, and this is the Conduit. All right, y'all. Another day, another blessing. Probably a lot better than that capitalist version of that. Another day, another dollar. It is officially Friday, June 18th. You know, I said that this was gonna be my last broadcast using my old equipment, but I got one more in me. You know, barring any catastrophic issues tomorrow for our interview with Roosevelt Smith at 1 p.m. So we look forward to you joining us tomorrow. That should be fantastic. We will be broadcasting on Facebook, my page, the Gather Together, Grow Together homepage, and also YouTube. So join us. Submit your questions. I actually will be sending the link out to folks if they actually want to join in and participate and ask Mr. Smith some questions either about Black history, Kitsap County Black history, or he himself. So again, that is 1 o'clock today, because it's officially Friday, right? By the time you see this, it will be later on in the morning, because it's 1:20 a.m. So we're getting ready to break down my setup. And for some of you that know, it's pretty crazy looking. But, I just had all these thoughts swirling through my head, which usually is the case. But this even more so than now. I guess a quick update. As far as Moderna is concerned, doing good. Don't seem to be having really any effects at all. Like I said, the rash is actually starting to go away on the side right here. So even that is getting better. So I think pretty much on the other side of it. You know, haven't even been experiencing any of the mild headaches. So that I can't tell whether it's from this cavity that I still need to have fixed, or, blood pressure or whatever. So I haven't even been getting that. So wherever it's coming from, or if there's multiple contributors to it, it hasn't been happening. So, I'm happy and pleased about that. But, again, everybody seems to be doing well. Rob and Stephanie with the Pfizer, myself and Raymond with the Moderna. And again, myself and Rob have had our second dose, and Stephanie and Raymond have had their first dose, respectively. Shout out to the Dent family. I appreciate them inviting me to dinner this evening. So that was good. I haven't really been out to dine. So I had a new experience at a new restaurant, and so that was a lot of fun. So I appreciate that. And shout out to Rob too. So, as many of you know, our children are finishing school. So I now have a newly minted 5th grader in Layla, right? So funny. So, of course, my name is Marwan Cameron, and Layla's name is Layla Michelle Cameron. So little MC is one of her many nicknames that I love. So we got to go out to the park today, our favorite spot. And, Rob joined us for a little bit, bought us an ice cream. And so it's nice to hang out in the park. And it's good to see her get out and do her cartwheels and run around and just have a good time and just be her, right? Kids being kids is so tremendously important, especially during times like now. So I'm always pleased to see her smiling and happy. Definitely makes me happy. But yeah, no, I think that's that's important, and that's good. But so I was going to break down my rig and get set up for the interview tomorrow. And Layla will be with us tomorrow, but she will probably hang out and do something else. And she gets bored pretty quick. Like, Dad, she was like, well, how long is the interview? Well, it might be like an hour or 2 hours. Oh my goodness. All right, I have something for you to do, sweetie. So, but you should listen in too, so to be informative. You know, we do this work, right? And we talk to folks and we try to share with them. You know what I always forget to do is to make sure that I'm coming through on the audio. I always need to do that. You know, sometimes people will tell me, hey, we can't hear you, you know. So let me make sure that I'm can be heard. You know, anytime I am live, you know, if anyone wants to share with them. You know, sometimes people will tell me, hey, we can't hear you, you know. So let me make sure that I'm coming through just share with them. You know what I always forget to do is to coming through too many times. I apologize for that. But you're doing the work, and through doing the work, sometimes you're reminded when people give it back to you. And so I was working with someone that I worked with several years ago, and you know they're kind of going through it right now. Actually, was a previous student of mine, and you know she's struggling right now as we can find ourselves in these spaces. And I was trying to draw on some of the lessons because she was bringing up some of the things that I had told her in some of the classes that she had been in. And in that, you know, I talked about, hey, you know, you should. One thing that can be helpful is having an affirmation bowl, right? And so by you writing down an affirmation and putting it in a bowl or in a jar, one, it puts you in a mindset to think about how capable you are, the blessings that you have, goals that you have achieved or are working toward, right? Just a great way to put you in a good mindset, right? It's a great way to start the day. It's also a really good way to kind of get you through those, you know, funky times when you're just not doing well. You're not feeling yourself. You're down. You're not having a lot of motivation. You just can't see any good, right? Flowers don't smell good. Food doesn't taste good. You know, your favorite show doesn't make you happy. You know, spending time with certain folks don't make you happy. Just nothing does it for you. And you're just in this rut. And this is one of the tools that you can use. And as you know, from one of the podcasts from way back when, I actually did this, you know, in just one of my podcasts, but also with Daddy and Layla, you can see that the bowl behind me, the brown, that's my affirmation bowl. And so I was able to show that to her and actually tell her, okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to just reach in that bowl and pull some out. And so she did, and she's reading some of the affirmations. And so it's important that you are congruent, right? That you are consistent and you do the things that you say that you're going to do to the best of your ability, right? Especially when you're in a position where you are teaching or advising. And so that was really impactful for her to be able to see that although I'm saying this is something that you can benefit from and how you can benefit from it, to see that as something that I actually do, right? Because oftentimes it's, you know, do as I say, don't do as I do. And I have lots of examples where that is true, like going to sleep and getting enough sleep. But that was impactful to her. And so that was interesting as I, you know, thought about that in the day. And I was getting ready to do the podcast last night, and Shaylin called me. You know, shout out to Shaylin. And I want to mention it now and tomorrow. But I owe the connection to Roosevelt Smith to her, because she actually tried to connect me to Mr. Roosevelt when I first started the podcast. because I don't know a whole lot of people, surprisingly enough. I mean, a lot of people know who I am, but there still is quite a few folks that don't know who I am, and I don't know who they are. And so she's really tied to the community, and so she was making a lot of connections for me to get folks to come on to the podcast so I can interview them and hear their story. And Roosevelt was one of those, and it just didn't work out, right? We didn't connect, and then Mr. Roosevelt ended up seeing him somewhere else, and then we were able to make that connection go on. So shout out to Shaylin for that. Just super important, always steadfast and congruent in her support of me, my goals, my mission, and G2's mission as a board member. So really appreciate and love her for that. So shout out to her. But in our conversation yesterday, one of the things that she was telling me is, I would say I advise and give counsel to my friends, family members, as I was telling you last Saturday, giving counsel, and of course clients and folks in the that I work with and serve, right? And she had brought up the fact that I was telling her that journaling is a really powerful tool to use, right? And of course, she knows about journaling. She's done journaling in the past, but even us, those who teach and advise, we amass all of these different tools that we can use, and we share them out. And sometimes either we forget about them because there's so many different tools. We forget about them because we're so busy helping others, right? And that, some of us use that as a coping mechanism. But sometimes you have to be reminded about the tools that exist and what's out there and how it can be helpful for you. And so I suggested that, she should journal, and kind of laid out the parameters of, how she should journal and whatnot. And so she was reflecting on what the journaling had done for her. And so it's always good to get, feedback and for people to tell you, thank you, what you told me, the time you spent with me was productive and helpful. And, I listened to your advice and it bore fruit, right? So that's always good, because it's great, because it's a great motivator, right? And two, you talk to a lot of folks and you give a lot of counsel and advice, and oftentimes, they may or may not take it, right? And so you don't know. Sometimes you can see, depending on how their orbit with you goes, right? On whether or not they took the advice, how it's going, if they're sticking to it, and whatnot. And so for her to provide that feedback really kind of put me in a space really reflecting after I got off the podcast last night, and then through moments today. And so thinking back from my old student and with Shaylin, and just talking about two very different tools, and seeing them, being able to draw on that and gain benefit from it was really helpful for me, right? And I'm definitely a workaholic for sure. And so I don't often make the time, because I will slip and say, well, I don't have time. And it's not typically that we don't have time. It's just that we prioritize other things above, doing different tasks and things that we want to accomplish, right? So I just don't prioritize the time like I should to journal. But I have these thoughts, that this stream of consciousness that is in my mind, and sometimes it's just a simple thought or two, and other times it's just this really long stream that unfortunately is often more lost than captured somewhere, so that I can reflect on it or talk about it or use it as a teaching tool, right? So that someone can get benefit out of it. And so it ends up being lost, and it's so tragic, right? It's like, education. It's like knowledge, right? Knowledge is great and it's wonderful, but it does nothing if you do nothing with it, right? So you render it inert. And so, I began to journal and I wanted to talk about an experience, that I've been going through over the last few days, right? And, having my conversations with Layla, I really, the one, there's lots of things I don't like about COVID. One is that I really want Layla to understand what it means to help others, right, that are less fortunate. And I think that's important, to give you perspective as you navigate through life. And so we don't have these, blinders on, and we're not able to see or apathetic about our fellow, uh, you know, community members and their plight and their suffering, right? And then we begin to make choices and decisions and voting and policies that can be detrimental to the whole, right? And it may just, it may serve our self-interest, but um, as a whole, it's not great. And there's quite a bit of nuance to that, so please don't take that the wrong way. And again, let me say right now, not all, not all, not all. When I speak, I'm going to speak in general terms, but I don't want to stop every few seconds and say not all, right? We're intellectually honest here. And so I wanted to, I'm having a conversation with Layla. And, it's summertime now, so it's playtime. It's like, let's go, she understands mama's at work and, I've got a little bit more flexibility in my schedule, but there's still things that I need to do too. And so having a conversation with her, as a 9-year-old and understanding that, there are folks that are out here that are hurting and it's invisible, right? I have 2 families that currently I'm trying to help right now. And between these 2 families, there are 12 children. That's a lot of children, right? And what I wanted to talk about, and so this will seem weird because it's going to be out of context because I'm not going to go into this tonight because my consciousness took me into another direction. Was just, the impact of what we do and why we do for the services that we provide. So, G2 does a lot of different things as an organization toward our mission and our vision, right? And so our vision is self-sufficiency for all Kitsap County residents, right? And so our mission is that we use unique solutions to help low-income Kitsap County residents maximize the benefits of the services they receive, right? And that happens in a lot of different unique ways, right? It's different for so many different people. And so we try to find those ways to help people navigate through their situations so they can get to the other side and achieve whatever goals that they're trying to do, stabilize themselves, put their families on a strong footing. And so that said, there are days when, you're engaged, but you're kind of going through the minutia of doing the work, right? And then there are days when you're empathetic, you're sympathetic, and you're impacted by the work that it is that you're doing, right? So no person is just like, all right, it's the day, let's go, and I'm pouring in 1,000% of my passion. Some days, we are kind of going through the motions. We're just trying to get through the day, right? You're still doing the work. You just may not have that same, bubbly spirit, that energy, right? And it can be exhausting. And, not speaking about, the particular families that I'm working with now. But, I often say that G2 is a place for, your 4th, your 5th, your 6th chances, right? And many folk exist in an environment of no second chances, right? We claim that there are second chances, but that's not often the case. And many of us are guilty of not allowing people to recover and, try again, right? It's like, well, you've made this mistake. And so, I'll let you live, but you're only going to live a life of, this level now. You'll never be able to achieve anything up here. So, you're going to pay forever, right? You never will pay your penance. So, many folks exist in this environment of no second chances. And with that said, there's also sometimes when folks have continued to struggle, right? Either they're doing the same things over and over again, they're making the same bad choices, or maybe they're just new bad choices, right? And they put themselves and their family in these situations. And it's like, okay, I have conversations with folks, about the status of the world, the moratorium on eviction ending whenever it ends. The fact that people are now going to have to start searching for jobs, the fact that it's still not a livable wage, the fact that some are still concerned about their health, right? Went to a restaurant tonight. I think maybe the server had a mask on. I don't think anyone else in that restaurant had a mask on, period, right? And what I hear from folks that often aren't in the service industry is like, look, you know what? These people put themselves in their situation. It ain't my fault. I'm struggling too. So why should we continue to dole out resources and time to these people that it's wasted on, right? And they may even feel like, man, if there was a way to help the kids where it wouldn't help the parents, I'd even be down for that. But at this point, because the parents are having so many difficulties and making so many bad choices repeatedly, we're just not going to help that family, right? And if it impacts the kids, hey man, I'm sorry, but this family, these people, these finite resources will be better served over here because there is just wasted on them. And it's tough. It's tough because there is some truth in that, right? But the kids are innocent, aren't they? Till they hit a certain age, which I'll talk about. But the kids are innocent. But the sins of the parents, the kids often pay for. And so it's kind of a tough place to be. It's a double-edged sword, as a lot of things in life are. For me, I want to try to be that third, fourth, fifth, sixth chance. And a lot of folks will tell me, why do you keep giving these people chances, right? They're clearly hustling you. They're clearly taking advantage of you. They're lying to your face, right? Maybe they're in an active drug use and they come and seek help from you and they tell you that they're going to do something and then they don't do it, right? And they believe that they got over. And, I don't quite see it that way. I understand it. And sometimes I even feel it and I can get angry from it. I am human, right? But at the same time, I don't know if this is the time when it's going to stick. I don't know if this is the time that they make a significant period of gain before maybe they end up using again, where there's some real lessons that were learned, and on their journey of getting to the point where they can say, because I'm using drug addiction right now as my example, to where they get to the point where, hey, it's 2 years, it's 4 years, it's 8 years, it's 10 years, it's 15 years. That the lessons in between, the support that they got in between, those are the things that are building their foundation to live a clean and healthy life later, right? And so it's hard to know. You can't know if this is the time. So you try, right? Okay, another chance, another chance. And you set your boundaries and everything else, right? But oftentimes they come and go, they come and go, they come and go. And what I was telling a client or someone that I was providing services to, they were beating themselves up because, they were like, look, 7 years ago, you told me this, you told me that, you gave me all the tools. I was doing good. And I didn't use the tools and I fell down and I stayed down, right? And typically, it's so funny, the older you get, the more you turn into your parents, right? So, it's getting late. You were supposed to be home before the street lights came on. We're a little older people. And the street lights then came on, right? Now you're late. Well, now you're late, so you stay out a little later. And then you look down and it's like, well, I would have just been 5 minutes late. I might have just got a stern talking to. Now I'm 15 minutes late. Now I'm 30 minutes late. The older we get, we might even get to the point where we panic and don't even come home, and we done really made our situation bad. But I see that all the time, right? So a lot of folks that, I help will begin to avoid me, right? Because they don't want to disappoint you. And so they know that you see all this potential in them and you've spent all this time and effort on them, pouring into them, and they feel it, right? And it's like, well, I'm not going nowhere near Mr. Cameron right now. I don't want him to see me like this. I know, the space that I'm in. And so they avoid you, right? Which can, delay them getting back up and start riding the horse again. And so, in this particular example, they came to me about 4 or 5 months ago and reached out for help. And so, I gave some information, said, okay, set up a time, we can talk. And then nothing, crickets, right? Until just recently. And so they were beating themselves up and they were saying, man, I wasted so much time and you told me this and I didn't listen, and just really down on themselves. And what I said to them was, well, one, you can't put the toothpaste back into the tube, right? What's done is done. All we can do is go forward from here, right? And to me, the biggest thing is look, the seed that was planted 7 years ago just didn't germinate. It wasn't ready yet, right? And when you reached out a few months ago, it was starting, if you remember in grade school, you grow the little seed to a plant and you see it start, that little bud start sticking through the dirt, right? No, it's not ready yet. You see it, it's coming. You want to be ready. So you reach out, but you're not quite ready to change yet. And then here you are. And so what I said to them was the seed was planted, right? And so the soil, although rocky and, full of stuff that needs to be cultivated and tilled, was still rich soil, right? I tell people oftentimes I see people like the code in the matrix, right? I can see their potential even if they don't see the potential in themselves. And you weren't ready yet. But the most important thing was to plant that seed so that when you became ready, you knew that there was a place that you can get help. You knew that you could reach in and use those tools, even if there isn't a physical place to go to, and you now can go ahead and get back on the horse and start to move forward in your life in a positive direction, right? Reverse your course. And no, the road isn't going to be hard, right? If you dug this big hole and now you've got to cover it up, you're not going to cover it up in a second, right? You didn't have a bulldozer when you dug that hole. You took a shovel, each scoop at a time, and dug this deep hole. Well, there's no bulldozer just to cover that hole up. So it's going to take some time for you to shovel and cover it back up. But you can look at that metaphor of covering that hole back up as the lessons as you are putting the dirt back. So it's one of the reasons why, for us, G2 is kind of the place of fourth, fifth, sixth chances. Now, sure, you have to come correct, right? We have standard operating procedures, right? There's a way that we do things. You have to act with a certain level of decorum. You don't have to be perfect, but you do have to be trying. That's what's required. But in other places in society, it's just a facade. And so while I was thinking about, okay, I want to reflect on, the multiple families, the multiple children. And let me tell you, my office manager she's feeling it, she's processing the paperwork for the family members that are behind on their rent, that don't know if they're going to be evicted, may or not be able to work, right? They're not work able, right? And not because, for some people, they're like, well, you being safe from COVID doesn't mean you can't work. I'm talking about like beyond that, like physically or mentally not being able to work, right? Whatever the case may be. And truly being in a hard spot. And they're not folks that put their head in the sands and let their situation get bad. It's just their situation is bad, right? And so when you're processing, scores of applications, and when many of those don't meet the requirements and there's no other resource to really send them to that they can take advantage of, right? That's tough, and if she had her way, we would drain the account and try to help all the people that's in front of us. And it's like, well, it's hard because you can't do that, because then you don't have an organization to try to serve as many folks as possible. It's so funny because Layla kind of thinks the same way. Well, why don't we just do this? Like, well, sweetie, we can't quite do that. So it's hard. And so she sees so many folks come in, what their situation is, and trying to help them and navigate through it, right? And I mean, we've seen, everything you can think of, on the owner side, on the tenant side. It's just hard. And we know that there are millions of people that are in that space, millions of families that are in that space. But I was reminded that Father's Day is Sunday. I don't really think about, holidays like that. So first and foremost, happy Father's Day, men. Early. Happy Father's Day. Because, hey, I may not be on the podcast Sunday, So I want you to know. And so it shifted my train of thought. So I'm getting there. So I often say that G2 is a place for fourth, fifth, and sixth chances. And journaling is important because it allowed me to kind of stay on this train of thought that I had, that I was thinking and trying to process things together. And it's really powerful and can be very helpful. As I was saying, many folk exist in an environment of no second chances. And now the second chances produce a facade of a new start. And they can limit a person's potential. So, for an example, many of our Black men and men, period, that are convicted of felonies find themselves being told, cliches and things like, pull yourself up from your bootstrap. You made your bed, now you got to lie in it. If you can't do the time, don't do the crime. You might not be able to possess a firearm to protect yourself and your family. You may not be able to serve as a chaperone for your kid's school. Some professions you may want to do, you can't even go after, right? So now you're maturing, and you've decided, hey, I'd love to, do this. I think this would be great. And now you can't. Some may say you should be lucky to be allowed that poverty level, unfulfilling job. See, I believe prison was supposed to be for people to go, spend time, think about what they did, pay their due, come in, come out, and then start over, right? You've paid your debt to society. Now it's time for you to go forward. And that's typically not the case. So you may not be able to contract with certain government agencies, right? So they tell you, hey, start a business, be industrious. So you do that, and you find that you could be stuck. I would see that a lot, right? I would have folks come in, as I told you, one of the jobs that I had at the college was an academic advisor. And I would have a lot of folks come in that had felonies on the records, and, they would want to go into professions that it's like, you can do it. And maybe there is an example of people that have worked in the field. And as an advisor, there's kind of a saying, I advise you decide, right? But do your research, because you might get a degree for a field that you'll never work in, or not at the level that you want to work in. And so you got to understand that. And it was all levels of different things on someone's record and different professions that they wanted to go into, nursing, criminal justice, banking, business, so many different things that now they're so impassioned to do that pathway was closed for them, or it would be tremendously hard if they wanted to be that trailblazer and try to push that door open and be that person, right? And oftentimes they may be tied to the community. So it's like, well, look, I can't leave the county because my family's here, or my kids are here, my external family's here, my support is here. I can't afford to move. Someone told me, and I don't know how accurate this is, but right now, one of our clients was going to move out of state, and they were saying that it was like $4,000 to put a hold on a U-Haul truck because people were checking them out for local moves and taking them on a one-way, right? So that's what we were told. I don't know if that's true. If someone can confirm that, let me know. But many times people that are more well-to-do will say, hey, just leave where you're at. Move. Why are you staying there? It's like, first, last, and deposit. Need to be able to move. need to be able to take my things, even if it's not a lot of things. It's easier said than done. Don't have work in the place that I'm going to, wherever that may be, right? It's just not this simple thing. Everyone can't just get up and then relocate. Even if you apply for a job and somehow you get it in the age of Zoom, you may have it, but again, do you have the resources to move to that new location? So people can become trapped, especially in an environment that is toxic and not healthy for them. And oftentimes, as we get older, we have children, and we will find ourselves to be the non-custodial parent. We may want to stay close to our kids. But you're here, you made your bed, now you lie on it. You lay in it. And you should be so lucky to be allowed a poverty level, unfulfilling job. You may not even be able to be eligible for housing or food assistance or any other social services that many other people have access to. You may be told to walk away from a person that you love when they are physically or mentally abusive. And now I'm talking about men, okay? So many times we're in these relationships and see the narrative is, well, this guy was mentally abusive. He was physically abusive. He was verbally abusive. And we don't hear it the other way, right? Men very rarely report abuse. And when they do, they're often laughed at by law enforcement, their peers, and from other women. So that's tough, right? Don't put your hands on a woman. Don't be verbally or mentally abusive to a woman. You need to walk away. And that can be really hard, right? You love this person, you're vested into the relationship. There may be a kid that is, or children. And it's so much easier said than done to walk away. But for the men, that's what they need to do. For women, it's so hard. She couldn't escape the victimization, right? She couldn't leave. She couldn't report the abuse because she was financially dependent on the man and the situation. So she stays. And everyone can understand that. But they don't understand it on the men's side because the man just needs to be the man. So if you do leave, you're blamed for not doing enough. Or the man is asked, well, what'd you do? What did you do to make her curse you out or be verbally abusive? What did you do to make her hit you? And you're a big man. That didn't hurt. You can take it seriously. So now you're saying that little thing hurt you. I don't know about you, but when my kids were really little and they're kicking their feet, it could put you on your knees. They're throwing their hands around, they hit you in the nose, and you feel like that eye starts watering. Right? Little babies can take you down. And even you restraining can be construed as an assault. If the police come, right, it's somebody's got to go to jail. Not true, but that's what they say. And typically it's the man. So what did you do? You must have did something. She wouldn't have just been physically or mentally abusive for no reason. So you should have walked away. And then it's, well, you left your family. You walked out on your family. But wait a minute. I needed to leave the situation because it was abusive. It wasn't healthy. I'm not going to hit her. I don't want to be verbally abusive, mentally abusive. So the man ends up being damned if he does, and he's damned if he doesn't. What does he do? What did you do, man? So she wouldn't have done it to you if you didn't do X, Y, and Z. This is on you. Your manhood's challenged. You couldn't deal with it. You couldn't work through it. You weren't man enough. And then if you do leave because it's a toxic and unhealthy situation for yourself, for her, and maybe the children, right? Well, you left, so that's on you. You made that decision. So it doesn't matter about the verbal abuse. It doesn't matter about the physical abuse, the mental abuse, right? Ignoring your needs. Oh, she cheated. It happens a lot. Deal with it. Right? You did something. If you had been giving her what she needed, then she probably wouldn't have cheated, right? Again, your fault, man. So even when you do the healthy thing, men end up paying the price. And then if there are children and the man leaves, then he must pay to contribute to two households. He doesn't receive the collateral benefit of paying for a single residence, right? So the rent and the utilities and the food and everything else that he pays for himself and his kids when he was under the same roof, right? That money helped everybody all at the same time. Now that he's no longer there, he's got to pay the rent and utilities and everything else for himself, and then he's got to contribute over to that household. Well, we're in a society now where, women want to be equal in the relationship, but also at the same time, kind of be treated in the same traditional roles, right? So I want to be a stay-at-home mom. The man needs to do this. The man needs to take care of that. So the woman is able to start another relationship with another man who is likely to be helping contribute to her household that you are also contributing to while you are trying to hold your own household down. And there's no woman that's coming in because that's not the role that's coming in to help sustain your household. And then again, we don't look at what the catalyst was, right? So if it was the right thing to do for him to leave because it was a bad environment for the child, for himself, and for her, then he must pay. Well, you left. It was on you. If he stays, then he deals with the mental, the physical abuse, the cheating, whatever the case may be. And God forbid if he ends up doing something because he can't take it anymore, right? And again, as I said before, when those things are reported, many times law enforcement laughs. His friends, his peers, oh man, just be a man, just take it. Seriously. So he's kind of stuck in a rock and a hard spot. And it's, what did you do? You must have did something. She wouldn't have just did that for nothing. So here she is with no agency, and you have all the accountability, and you're hurt either way. So again, he doesn't receive that collateral benefit, but he must pay to the other household first. And that percentage, can be in the form of state sanctions. Those payments often, result in restitution or garnishment. Goals and aspirations that man had are now just dreams because there's no time, there's no money in order to seek those things out. And everybody doesn't have the same level of capability as everyone else. Some people can juggle 8 balls at the same time successfully. Some people can only do 2 or 3. And it's like, well, I did it. I worked a full-time job, and then I worked another part-time job, and then I went to school, and I had the kids, and I did this, and I was able to do that. But he didn't have the social services support. He didn't have the external family support. He didn't have the friend support. He's stuck. And again, we're having a intellectually honest conversation. So while it is true that there are men, sorry about that. While there are men that have overcome that, the vast majority don't, which is why our numbers of homelessness in the Black community, Black men, are more affected by that, boys and men. Well, actually, that's just society, period, right? More men are affected by that. But when we talk about the issues that we have in society, it's women and children. Because men need to be able to fend for themselves, right? They're men. You'll figure it out. We've got to take care of those that can't take care of themselves. We don't see men that way. So again, they're experiencing garnishment. Their aspirations, their dreams become unattainable. Tax credits and refunds are lost. Many social services that would help them with tangible life gains are not available because they are now the non-custodial parent. Men are often neutered as the decision maker. So again, in many of those scenarios, right? Because it takes 2 people in these relationships. So if he is of sound mind and body and says, hey, look, we're in this verbal and mental and physical relationship and we need to separate, this is where I'm at. And I am not the custodial parent. And so the decisions, when you think about it, and for those of you, if you can think critically and say, hey, you know what? I've been in a single parent situation. And, there was a gentleman who was listening to the podcast last Saturday night, and he was like, I've got, custody of my kids, and the mothers, don't want anything to do with them. So for those that do, typically you're not making decisions together, right? Because you're not going to be allowed to make decisions that impact a household that you don't live in. So I'm taking care of this kid. This kid is in my house. I'm paying the bills. I'm going through this and that and the other. So this is what I need you to do to help. So yeah, you're the parent. You're not really making decisions, right? You're just kind of now a cog in the machine of the village that's helping to raise the child. So even if you made the right decision because you were in a bad place, in a bad relationship, and you were the one that were mature enough to step away, tried to work through it, and it didn't work out, right? You take the hit for that. So men can find themselves in this damned if you do and damned if you don't scenarios on a myriad of levels, right? If you're not spending enough time with your kids, or you're not available when the mother or the child wants you to be, well, it's usually because, hey, man, I'm working multiple jobs, or I got a pretty crappy job because it is what it is. I'm working these shifts. I don't get time off. I don't have that flexibility. I'll get fired. And again, consider, as I was saying before, in some of the stats that I was showing you, like 1 in 3 Black men have been convicted of a felony. And so that is going to make it a lot more difficult for you to work an 8-hour job that's going to give you and fulfill all of your needs, and then also support another household to that level, right? I talked about how the median income was $42,000. The median, the middle. So that means there's a whole bunch of men that are making below that. And what is rent in a studio or a 1-bedroom? $1,100, $1,200, $1,300. So if I work another job to try to help to pay to support, well, where's school? Where's training? When do I do that? Do I have the aptitude or ability to do that? They say college isn't for everyone, right? See, we say these things, and then when we look at the person who not everyone fits, we condemn them for not being everyone. So again, a lot of men, a lot of Black men, have bad options when it comes to their pay, their shifts, benefits, flexibility, the distance they have to travel, etc. Then they hear, well, you shouldn't have messed up the relationship. You should have been man enough to deal with it. I think all men need mental health counseling. I was just telling someone the other day, we can see the importance of our bodies, right? You need to put good food, nutrients in your body. You need to exercise your body. But oftentimes what's missed is the mental, right? And you'll see it. You'll see people that are in fantastic physical shape, but mentally, they haven't worked their body out. So I'll tell folks, your mind is like an exotic luxury vehicle. It's like a Lamborghini, or a Guinea, as Layla would say. So you got to take care of the mental. It's tremendously important. And for men, we've been told you can't have mental health issues. You got to be strong. You can't talk about it. You must be stoic. Just deal with it. Man up. But then if we do finally break through and say, okay, I will talk to someone, I'll get some help. Right? We're facing all these things. So when do you go to a counseling session? Because again, that low paying job that has no flexibility, horrible hours, and you're probably working more than one trying to make ends meet, you're not getting a mental health session in. So you're just existing. And you're just doing the best that you can. So men, mental health counseling, if you can. If not, I talk about your circle of influence. I talk about your circle of support. Look around you. See who those 5 to 7 people are who are around you. If they are not people that have provided or can provide that support, then you need to start changing and modifying your circle of influence and your circle of support. You need to find that person that is going to give you sound counsel that is not based on their own ego. It's critical. We all need someone to talk to, and we got to pick the right person, not the one that's going to gas you up. And you know who those people are. We've had them in our lives, right? It's the person that instigates at the club but then never throws a punch. Is always running. You gonna let him say that to you? So stay away from the people that tell you to man up. Man, you a warrior. We warriors. We're G's, right? It's not what we do. That's not helpful. Man, you did this to yourself. You need to stop making excuses. Man, just hang in there. Man, I got nothing. I won't continue to beat a dead horse, but you get what I'm saying, right? We've heard these things from our men friends, right? Man, I got nothing. Man, just man up, man. You got to do what you got to do. Stop all that bitching, man. Come on, dog. We're not helping each other in that way. Unfortunately, men will typically work until the day they die. And horrible poverty level jobs. They won't be careers. You'll suffer through experiences of discrimination or racism, possibly. Rudeness. There is no retire. There's no living off a pension or your SSI or other retirement vehicles. You're going to work till you die. I know so many men that are in that position. I know family members that are in that position. There's no off ramp. And their bodies are breaking down. They can't do what they did before. That was me at 24, right? Fell off the scaffold, destroyed my back. You never know how you are blessed by something bad happening to you. It's like, I can't remember quite how the story of Jacob goes, but he was wrestling the angel and the angel broke his back or whatever. And there's some story that goes along with it. But I really honestly believe that, had God not taken my ability to use my body, then what would have switched over for me to start using my mind? What would have been that trigger for me to get my education? Because I was an arrogant little S. I'm 270. I'm the strongest I've ever been. I can lay 70-pound block with one hand. I can butter that block and hold it up and let it sit on that mortar and not let it sink. Can you imagine holding a 70-pound cinder block and it's sitting on wet mortar and tapping it into place and not letting it sink down? That's supposed to be a two-man job. Woo, the old days. So arrogant. Conceited. Selfish. Single-minded. Definitely not the person that I am today. So thankful that I had that experience to put me where I am now. But so many men will work until the day that they drop dead. And they're not going to, it's not because they want to. It's because they have to. They're still working minimum wage, crappy jobs, standing up on their feet. Gout, sciatic pain, foot pain, amputations, high blood pressure, back pain, arthritis. What's worse is the computer literacy. I can't tell you how many men, as they age, cannot use this technology pretty much at all. Computer literacy is a huge thing. They don't know how to surf the internet and get the information that they need in an expeditious time. They don't know how to use Microsoft Word or Google Docs. They don't know how to navigate organizations and services that have programs for them to use. And as the technology gets newer and they get older, the divide gets larger. And society just doesn't help men the way that it helps women. Right? Hey, have a seat. Yeah, we'll help you navigate it. And the tiers work on most people. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not being disparaging in that way, right? Because as women get older, they have issues with computer literacy too, right? We're just often more sympathetic or empathetic toward a woman than we are to a man, right? Come on, you're a man, figure it out, man up. Or we go off and we try to do it on our own, right? We are going to man up. And I should be able to do this. All right, I need to go here, look at this website. And I just got done telling someone this 2 weeks ago, right? And he spent a good portion of the day trying to do something that if he had done, not let someone do it for him, but did it in a space where there was someone there to say, okay, no, try this. No, go here. All right, now do this. He would have done it in an eighth of the time. But you're trying to be self-sufficient. You're trying to be a man, right? You're trying to figure it out. You know that you go to a lot of places and it's not set up that way, right? It's like, hey, look, you want this service? All right, go to this website and fill this out and do that and follow the steps. Next. And for a lot of folks, it's like, man, okay, well, that's it. Guess that ain't gonna work out. I might try. I might try to ask someone to help me to do it. And I see it all the time, right? Guys will ask maybe their female friends or younger folks, hey man, can you help me do this? Or can you do this for me? Right. And a lot of times someone ends up doing it for them when they do get the resources, but they've never learned how to do it themselves. So if that resource is gone or they're not in a position to do it because they got their own stuff going on, then they're out. And again, like I said at the beginning, not all. But it's frequent and it's often and it's more people. Men have this experience and it's unfortunate. Computer literacy is a big deal. And I see it in a lot of aging black men where their computer literacy is just inept. And unfortunately, we're faced with that false bravado, that machismo of, our fellow brothers who turn to our experience. They're like, hey, it's a Nike ad, just do it. They often talk about their hustle or their grind. They may justify compromising their principles, by boosting how they took advantage of a situation, other men that they may have undermined, or maybe they did it for ego, insecurity, fear, ignorance, any of those reasons. It's like, why would you dog your man out to someone else? Why would you do that? Why would you throw him under the bus? You have tarnished that man's reputation. And for what? Did it exalt you somehow? Did you feel threatened by that man? Sometimes the things we learn as a kid are so important, right? You don't have something good to say, don't say anything at all. And if that's the case, it's like a movie, right? Hey man, what did you think of that movie? Oh, I hated that movie. You don't want to go see that. All right, I never go and see it. And then I happen to be on a plane or somewhere else and the movie comes on. I'm like, man, this movie was awesome. Why they tell me that movie was bad? We do that with people, right? Oh man, you don't want to deal with such and such. Oh, he this, he that. Make your own decisions, right? And it's like maybe, you have had some bad experiences with this person, and this person did do this, that, and the other to you or someone else. But that hasn't been my personal experience, right? So dangerous when we do that to each other. Don't undermine other men. Period. Don't set them up and set them on some woke path. Man, this is how it is. You need to stick it to the man. You need to tell the man what it is. And then you look up and they're not doing that. Right? Or they do it in spaces where they don't have anything to lose. But when you see when they got their stuff on the line, they're whispering. All right, now we got to act right because we don't want to lose. I don't want to lose what I got. The hard thing is, first, happy Father's Day, men. We keep saying that. Women will often advocate for themselves and other IPOCs, right? Again, IPOC or BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, people of color. They'll cast out their sons even when they don't have daughters. And they'll advocate for, black girl magic, girl power, etc. I just heard of a prominent black woman in the community that said she wanted to do big things for black women and people of color. And I'm like, damn, you want to do something for black women and people of color? Damn the men. And when I pointed it out to this person that was telling me this, she was like, well, that she's had bad experiences with black men. So we talk about bias, implicit, explicit, and all of those training words. We only see it for the things that we care about, right? I don't have a vested interest in breast cancer awareness. I don't have anyone in my family that has suffered from or passed away from breast cancer. I don't have an infatuation or care about pets. So I don't have any affiliation or ties or compassion or any thoughts for the Humane Society. We can't be passionate about everything. It just doesn't work that way. But at the same time, we can acknowledge where the blind spots are, but they won't even see that, right? So literally, and you will see this all the time, right? And this is men, period, right? Because right now it's down with the patriarchy. So this isn't just black men. But I want to help women and people of color. It's just glaring, right? And these are the power brokers that are in our community. So, like George Floyd, our carcass is picked over for whatever resources can be gained, and then our empty husk are just set aside. So many of the issues that plague the Black community actually impact boys and men more. But the programs are targeted toward women. So we look at homelessness, we look at prostate cancer, we look at incarceration, police brutality, the justice system, education, homelessness, on and on and on, actually impacts men more by the numbers. But all these organizations and businesses are targeting entrepreneurship, business support for Black women. And you can Google it and try to find programs for Black men specifically, and you'll be hard pressed to find it. So many of the issues that plague the Black community actually impact boys and men more, but the programs and the people are targeted are women. We're told to get our act together, be a man, step up, earn it. And as I've shown in my stats from the podcast that I did 2 days ago, right? Many of us are born into poverty, raised by single mothers. We have lower literacy and graduation rates. We're more impacted by the school to prison pipeline. We're destroyed when state sanctioned child support financially cripples us. We lose wages through garnishment. We lose our licenses and our passports. We're unable to financially abort a child that we may not want. Especially impactful is being told directly or indirectly where you do and don't belong. Again, in an open meeting, a Black man was told by another prominent Black woman in this community in a public meeting, and I'm paraphrasing here, kids don't need help from thugs like you. So when I look around, I sit on different committees. I attend different Zoom meetings for so many different organizations and programs. And oftentimes, either there's only one Black male or two. Now, see, this is where people get pissed off and they start to sing, right? Shame, insult, need to be right, guilt. So instead of introspection, you get criticism, blame, defensiveness. And a result from, they'll say, no one's keeping y'all from being in these spaces. We asked y'all and y'all didn't show up. We're dismantling the patriarchy and toxic masculinity. And, hey, I talked to other people about you, especially some other Black men, and they were like, I don't know about him. I'm just saying, I don't know. Watch yourself. And y'all are dangerous. Y'all are focused on the wrong things. And you know what? It's time for other people to be heard. These are all direct quotes of things that either I've heard or other men have told me that they have heard. This year, this quarter, and then we're placated. All right, fine. What do you want to say or contribute to the conversation? All right, you done? You sure? You got it all out? We wouldn't want anyone to say that you weren't heard now. All right, then. Thank you for your contribution. Okay, what's next on the agenda? That happens all the time. I want to play this. You know, for me, the black male political agenda is important to me. I think that it is more tangible than tokenized, making Juneteenth a federal holiday. Oh, you know, old Joe Biden, Jim Crow Joe has now given black people something, right? Don't ever say I didn't give you nothing. What does that change? So does that BS holiday change police brutality? Change the literacy rates? Does it answer for the atrocities of the past, the atrocities that are currently going on? Nah. But y'all got your holiday. So go on and buck dance. So offensive, man. So offensive. Shout out to Dr. Tiasan Johnson, as usual. This is something that he says at the end of all of his podcasts. And I think we need to hear it.
Right. Brothers, be reminded, we are not criminals by birth, perennial rapists, incapable intellects, man children, sperm donors, child support wellspring, success objects, walking phalluses, ATM machines, lottery tickets, brainless henchmen, valueless assassins, pro bono mercenaries, unpaid bodyguards, interchangeable stepfathers, child discipline proxies, unpaid repairmen, workhorses, emotional tampons, or any other socially accepted dehumanizing stereotype. We are thinkers, inventors, innovators, leaders, fathers, warriors, and men. Embrace your humanity, know your worth, and extend your time, attention, and resources only to those who genuinely respect you. And remember, your worth is not defined by meeting other people's narcissistic, selfish, and unrealistic needs. You define your worth.
All right. Man, I can't say it any better than that. I suggest y'all print that out, put it on your wall. That's powerful. That's that's powerful, man. That's powerful. But I got action items for you. Of course, I want to challenge you, right? Yeah, I can make this more pretty and put it on screen for you. I have a message for you. First, happy Father's Day, man. And I'm saying happy Father's Day to all men. You need to heal yourself so that you can lead effectively. You may already be in leadership positions, but you are not on code. You may be openly and covertly destroying your fellow brother. You use the same oppressive talking points and actions against your brother. You demand forgiveness but condemn others. So I challenge you these 5 things. Identify one deficit you have and work on it. SMART goals are really helpful for you to do that. Introspectively, think of how you are hurting men in the community. Okay? Especially black men. Create a goal to diminish that harm. Create a goal to diminish that harm. Again, SMART goals are great. If you don't know what a SMART goal is, the acronym for SMART is specific. It should be a specific goal. It should be measurable. It should be attainable. It should be realistic and have a time set to it, right? So oftentimes we make these really pie in the sky goals and we have no direction on how to achieve that goal, right? Man, I want to lose some weight. How much weight do you want to lose? What's the time frame you want to lose it? What are you going to do to lose that weight? What are you going to win, and how are you going to check in to see if you are keeping up on there? Are you going to eat? Are you going to exercise? What are you going to do? Number 4, reach out to 5 brothers who you have never met before. Share who you are and listen to who they are and what they have going on. Commit to joining one committee or organization. You do have to be present. And it's not good enough for us to say, well, nobody told me. That's unacceptable. We're men. And while that may be the truth, that nobody did tell us, we don't have the luxury of existing in that space in that way. We must put ourselves into these positions. So, again, we can talk about what is. We do need to acknowledge it because we need to know where we were, where we're at, and where we want to go in order to get to where we want to go. In the most effective manner that we can. So, and said I wanted to put that up there. I did put it in the chat. I know it's a little hard to read. Let me zoom in. So I hate Google Docs. I am definitely a Microsoft Word person. What I do like about Google Docs is, it's helpful for other people to use. I do love the fact that, anything that is free is definitely great. So, I do rather appreciate that. But man, I do not like Google Docs. All right, so that's a little bit better. Again, so men, identify one deficit you have and work on it. I defined what a SMART goal was and how to do it. Introspectively, think about how you are hurting a Black man in the community or Black men in the community. What can you do to diminish that harm, which is number 3. Create a goal to do that. Are you backbiting? Are you tearing your brother down? Are you not advocating for him when you're in a space and you know that it might be good? See, women, they got this thing down. I was sitting in a meeting the other day and people were like, well, who do you think in the community we could reach out to and might be able to do this and that? And a bunch of women just immediately jumped up and started naming people that weren't even there. This person's awesome and that person is great and think about this person and da-da-da-da-da. Even in the email, right? It was like, hey, this is all well and good. Who maybe these people would be great to have these conversations and establish, something good going forward. See, they do that for each other. We don't do that for each other. So if you're in a space, maybe that's what it is. Oh man, I didn't do anything to hurt him. I just didn't say anything about him. But you knew that brother was trying to do this in this particular business, right? Oftentimes I'll see, we're having this conversation, I think, with the Reverend and with Tasia. Someone will be doing something, man will be doing something. And instead of trying to support what they're doing, you're like, you know what? I'll just do it myself. I'll add on to whatever I was doing. That's not what I was doing, but I'm going to add on to that. And I'm not going to support that over there. It's like, wow, that's crazy. And you wonder why we're where we're at. So again, you can talk about all the things that happened to us. And those things did happen. And it did cause a lot of issues. And it does impact us to this day. But you got to be accountable, black men. You got to be accountable, men. And you got to be accountable to each other. You know what's interesting is we talk about, I have this argument with one of my lady friends about how men are logical and women are emotional. And so I'm purposely misogynistic with her, right? Because it drives her crazy. And we can do that. And so what's interesting is in all truth, men can be some seriously emotional entities. So it's like, wait a minute, I thought you were logical. You being as emotional and petty like a teenage girl in junior high. Kind of crazy. But there has been this history. We have gone through all this trauma. And we will recognize and we will forgive other groups, other people that have done far worse. And we don't have to be asked to forgive them. We'll make justifications and just forgive all these other groups, but we will not forgive each other. We will not respect the other person. I don't respect him. I don't respect you. I mean, you got to earn that. How exactly is someone supposed to earn your respect, by the way? And quite frankly, who the hell are you? It's unfortunate, man. But create a goal to diminish your harm. Reach out to 5 brothers that you've never met before. Tell them who you are. And listen to their story. Who are they? What are they into? It's one of the things that, and I came up with that one because that was mine, right? So commit to joining a new committee and organization and tell other black men that you love them. That's an extra one. Black men, I love you. Happy Father's Day. So how this was for me, when I decided to create this podcast in February, I thought about what was the reason why I was creating it. And I'm looking at the situation as, hey, look, COVID has people isolated. People are lonely. They don't have support. Abuse is up. Addiction is up. Depression is up. Suicide is up. All these things are up. And I need to create a conduit to create a space for people to connect. And so that was a deficit that I wanted to work on. Because while we were open, right, pre-COVID, Men are coming through all the time. Men, black men, we're able to provide that assistance. COVID shut everything down. We don't have that contact and kind of falls away. Something that I needed to do. So I wanted to think introspectively was, how am I hurting black men in the community? And for me, the way that I believe that I was hurting black men in the community is I didn't know who they were. I know the ones that I know, the ones that I'm comfortable with, right? The ones that are in my orbit. Which is why I ask folks, either on Facebook or people that I know, hey, introduce me to some folks so that I can bring them on the podcast, so that I can elevate them, so I can elevate their voice, so I can talk about and let them talk about what it is they do in the community. And, well, I'm way past my goal, right? That's my goal to diminish harm, is to reach out to five brothers, get to know who they are, give them a platform to tell their story, what they're into. And I've been able to do that. Case in point, Mr. Smith is on the podcast tomorrow. Just one example. Commit to joining a new committee or an organization. I mean, right now I'm sitting on or attend a lot of them. And they're not even all local. And so those are the 5 things that I'm doing. You know, again, as in with Shaylin, shout out to her and the person that I was helping, that bowl of affirmations that's behind me, which is important to show that congruence, that consistency, that I'm doing what it is that I say. And men, we have to do what we say. And to using the advice of journaling. This is 3 pages that just flowed out of me. Don't worry about correcting spelling, punctuation. Just get it out. It's cathartic. It's healthy. And somebody needs to hear it. Somebody needs to hear it. We can continue to talk about what's wrong. And again, we do need to analyze it. But we've got to take action. The action piece has to be there. And then we've got to check back, right? Are we actually making improvements? Are the things that we're doing actually bearing fruit? And it's powerful to see that the seed that I planted 7 years ago, 5 years ago, although not ready to germinate back then, was still powerful enough that when it came time, that person was able to seek me out. Even me not even being at the college anymore. That a colleague that I respect, someone who's my age, would take my counsel and take my advice and use it and then report back the effectiveness of said advice. So I know that it works. I have anecdotal and always forget the other one, computational data. Cliche. Be the change you want to see. Oh man, it's almost 3 a.m. Hour and 40 minutes. That's not bad. I tell you, get it out. It's helpful. Happy Father's Day, man. I love you. You are worthy to be loved. Tomorrow is a new day. Make your plan. create and or cultivate your circle of influence, your circle of support. Get connected. If it's not me, if it's not G2, it's out there. And if it's not, start it yourself. We did. All right. I am Marwan Cameron. This is the Conduit. I will see you, in about 10 hours for our interview with Roosevelt Smith. 1 p.m. a few hours from now.